Hey guys, welcome back to Jessin Reads Romance. I'm Jessin and today I'm here with another weekly wrap up. So this week was interesting. It's very interesting. I had a very mixed bag when it comes to the books that I read this past week. There was some anticipated reads that I read that completely missed the bar for me. I was so excited about one particular book and it completely bombed in my eyes. There was another anticipated release that did really well and I loved it and I gave it 5 stars. So like I said, a very mixed bag. I have some rereads here and some okay middle of the road books. So anyway, let's jump into that. I finally got to some arcs that I'm supposed to be reading in September. I still have 2 more and the release date is within the next week, so I'm struggling with the arcs. They feel like assigned reading at this point. I read The Devil's Own Duke by Lenora Bell. And I really, really loved the first book in the series, which is Love is a Rogue. And it's the Wallflowers versus Rogue series. I really loved that one. I thought that it had a really strong opening, great chemistry between characters. So I did have expectations when it came to the other Wallflower. The premise of this book is that Hetty has a father who is a duke. And he had a cousin and also a son who was going to inherit the dukedom because he only had Hetty. And they recently died, so now he has no heir. Hetty is the one who is encouraging her father, you need to get remarried because all of our lands, everything, what are we gonna do? You have no heir, you have to produce another heir. And he is so reluctant. So I think it's a really fun role reversal that Hetty is actually encouraging her father and inviting eligible widows who are still of childbearing age. And he is so resistant. He's been drinking a lot and she is just struggling because she wants her father to do this for her. So they have this ball. All the eligible widows are coming to the ball and she's like, Dad, you're gonna have to pick one at midnight. Midnight, we're gonna make an announcement. You're gonna have a new duchess, okay? While she's at this ball, she's like a wallflower and this man just approaches her right off the back, just like whoop, right to her and says, I want to waltz with you. And she's like, okay. So this first meeting wasn't quite as charming as Love is a Rogue. And I know that I shouldn't like compare books, but while I was reading this book the entire time, I felt like something was missing. Lenora Bell just kept missing the mark when it came to chemistry and a plot that was interesting to me. So this mystery man is just waltzing with Hetty and she's talking to him. She thinks he's super handsome and he makes a remark saying that, doesn't everyone in your social class love to dance? And she's like, oh no, like not me, I don't really like to dance. And then later on, like a couple sentences later, I believe it's on the same page, she remarks, oh, you must be a relation of one of the potential duchesses that I invited tonight. And I'm like, are these characters just not listening to each other? Because he just grouped her as other socially, as a social class. She is upper, she is part of the aristocracy and he considers himself not. So why is she saying, oh, you must be related to one of the titled ladies here? So immediately I'm just like, okay, this heroine is not paying attention and I didn't like it. I was being, yes, picky about it. So later on when he finds her at the balcony alone, of course, and they start kissing and making out, it wasn't working for me. The dialogue felt very hokey in this one. Come to find out, this guy is apparently a long lost 7th cousin once removed, like the lost child, and he is next in line to inherit the dukedom. And Hetty's father is over the moon. Yes, I don't have to marry, you can totally inherit this will be great. And Hetty's like, no, I don't want this newcomer coming in and ruining everything. She has aspirations, she doesn't have time to babysit her father, when it's obvious that he's just taking this guy for his word and being like, okay, you're the next heir, sure. I understand why she's skeptical. Obviously you should be. Ash has grown up in the slums and we know that he's playing a part. He has ambitions. He wants to reform the way that child labor is conducted in the factories because he used to have a job there before he and a friend escaped and then they got into thieving. He just wants to make a better life for these kids. And one of these ways that he can do it is he can pretend to be the heir to this dukedom so that he can like have a foot in the aristocracy and change some laws, which I admire him for that. But like the whole chemistry between him and Hetty and the plot of him wanting to refill the coffers of the dukedom because of course Hetty's dad made horrible investments and now they have no money and she was hiding it from her. She has a dream of making English sparkling wine a big thing, because apparently it's looked down upon. Champagne is the thing, not English sparkling wine. Everyone thinks that English sparkling wine is a joke. And the reason why she wants to do this is because her mother was French. She brought grape seeds over and was trying to reform their vineyards at their estate. Ash wants to clear the vineyards for stables because breeding thoroughbreds is lucrative, and he wants to refill the coffers. So they're at odds. When Hetty's dad was like, hey, I did see y'all kissing, so like y'all probably should get married. Don't think you can pull one over me, and it'll be perfect because then my daughter, like, she'll be taken care of. She'll be the next duchess. And Hetty's father's like, well, this way it'll really stay in our family because y'all can produce an heir. Again, chemistry was missing. The whole sparkling wine thing felt a little bit, I don't know, juvenile. The way that it was handled felt really juvenile, and I think I struggled with a lot of books lately, anticipated books that just missed the mark for me. So I've been talking about this book for a while. There's nothing specific that was like bad about it, but it just wasn't interesting. It wasn't interesting, and I felt very underwhelmed. I'm giving that book 3 stars. It didn't even feel like the same type of writing as Love is a Rogue to me. Next, I read Carnal Secrets by Suzanne Wright. This is the 3rd book in her Phoenix Pack series, and this couple is teased in the background because Shia is best friends with the heroine from the first book, Feral Sins, and we discover in the 2nd book that she has found her mate, Nick. The problem is Nick is an alpha of another pack who is kind of allies with the Phoenix Pack. It's almost unheard of for an alpha male to mate with a submissive female, because submissive females can't really hold the role as like the alpha female of a pack. They will continually challenge her, she's weaker, whatever. So Nick has been staying away from Shia, and Shia has just had enough because she can't date any other men because Nick runs them off, and then she can't be near Nick, and it's like physically kind of hurts her. So her friend Taryn decides to help her make a run for it so that Nick can't come drop in anytime he wants just to check on her in the Phoenix Pack. Once Shia makes her big move and leaves, Nick realizes, oh shit, I have been hurting her. I can't imagine her not in my life. I have to make some changes. I have to make a choice. Do I want to be the alpha of the pack, or do I want to be with my mate? Like, I've been emotionally humbling her and expecting her to just be okay with it. And he decides to resign as alpha and chase Shia. So he has a lot of groveling to do, and basically the whole entire book is Nick trying to convince Shia, I'm not leaving. I made a mistake. I should have been with you in the first place, and you're my priority now. Of course, Shia's wary, and she's had every single hero and heroine in this series that I've read so far by Suzanne Wright has had some serious baggage, like serious baggage. And this 3rd book in a series, after reading them back to back, I can see that Suzanne Wright has a very formulaic way of writing. Like I said, both main characters have insane baggage. Lots of the same quippy jokes happening. In every book, the heroine gives the hero a weird nickname. The first one, I didn't mind it. Taryn calls Trey Flintstone because they live in like caves, and she likes to joke and call it Bedrock. So I thought that was fun. In the 2nd book, the heroine called the hero Popeye. And I can't even remember why she nicknamed him Popeye. It was just so stupid. In this 3rd book, Shia calls Nick Beavis, like Beavis and Butthead. And I'm just like, I don't like it. I don't like it. It's so formulaic. There's always a really big bad. And though it captured my attention for a while, I also feel like this book, it's not an overly long book, but they have so many scenes that it makes it feel long. So by the end of the story, I'm like, when is it going to wrap up? Also, like I said, another formulaic thing is the hero, the heroine totally screw up and really hurt the other emotionally. I was very annoyed with some of the decisions that Shia made. He has Nick from the very beginning of the book, once he found her again, was being amazing, attentive to her, bending over backwards for her, and she just decides, well, I don't trust this, so I'm gonna go on a date with another guy. And this is at a point where they're feeling like they're more committed, so it kind of felt like it came out of the blue. And the excuse is that her emotional baggage. She has trust issues, not just because of Nick, but because of her mother. It wasn't as compelling. At the end of this book, we do get the formation of the Mercury Pack, which is a separate series, I believe. And yeah, I gave this book 3 stars. So I just haven't been feeling generous. If I wasn't enjoying a book, I'm not going to raise my rating a little bit just because I've liked books in the past. Like, if I don't enjoy it now, I'm like, it can't be above a 3 star. So next book is Saint by Sierra Simone. This is the 3rd book in the Priest series. And if you've not read Priest or Sinner, Those books are absolutely phenomenal. I think C.R. Simone just does some wonderful things. It is very taboo, especially priest, because he is a full-blown priest who is practicing, and it's romance between him and a parishioner. The second book is Sean Bell. So this is a family. Tyler Bell, Sean Bell is the hero of book 2, Sinner, and that one's less taboo because the heroine Zinni is contemplating going into service as a nun. This book is a second chance romance between Aidan Bell and Elijah. And Elijah is actually the brother of Zinni. We have lots of crossover from Sinner and Saint. So apparently, a couple years ago, 5 years ago, Aidan Bell, who is also like very rich, very successful, multimillionaire guy who had been dating Elijah, just had some sort of breakdown where he felt like he needed to turn to religion. And he hadn't been very religious before. They've had problems in the past, which is why I think you should read the first 2 books in the series because it makes a little bit more sense. But Aidan felt like he was drowning, and he turns to this monastery and he was like, I need to become a monk. So for the past 5 years, Aidan has been living as a monk. The problem is, he completely just left Elijah high and dry. They had been openly dating, and he didn't even discuss it with Elijah, and he basically broke up with him through a note and said, I'm joining the monastery and becoming a monk. I think that C.R. Simone does a lot of interesting exploration with mental health in this book because obviously something happened to Aidan. There was something going on that really scared him. He was in a very dark place, and it's not revealed quite in the beginning. It's slowly revealed. You get some pieces, you can kind of guess what happened, and he felt like this was his only way to kind of survive, is to become a monk. And Elijah at this point, he's trying to move on with his life. Has been dating this other really nice guy, and he just needed closure with Aidan, so he goes to the monastery to visit Aidan and tell him, I'm engaged now, and I just needed this closure because I didn't get it 5 years ago because I haven't seen you. And it just rekindles all kind of old feelings, and Aidan is struggling with, I still have feelings for Elijah. I never stopped loving him. They really have not stopped loving each other this whole time. But Aidan almost feels beholden to monk life because it kind of saved his life. So that's the dilemma in this book. Aidan doesn't want to ever feel like that dark place he was in ever again. He also feels like this type of lifestyle contributed to his mental health, and he's been making a lot of other changes as well. But also the pull to Elijah is so very strong. So I thought this was a beautiful romance. It wasn't as compelling as Priest and Sinner though, and not because it didn't have as much of a taboo element in it. It did, it very much did have a taboo element. He's a monk. Elijah is also trying to move on with his life, and he does have this other man in his life. And I don't want to spoil anything with plot, but Elijah does write for this magazine, and he kind of convinces his boss that he wants to shadow Aidan because the monasteries make their own beer, and so he's gonna write up an article and stuff like that, a series. And so that's his excuse to get closer to Aidan so that they can talk it over, because Aidan's not very open in the beginning to talk about exactly what happened. It's a slow revelation. I didn't enjoy this book as much, and I feel like it was because there wasn't as much tension. It wasn't like I was waiting for Aidan to acknowledge his feelings for Elijah. It was there from the very beginning, from the very first scene where Elijah suddenly drops by the monastery and Aidan's like, I still have feelings for Elijah, and you can tell Elijah still has feelings for Aidan. So there was no tension really romantically. It was just, when are they going to get to the point where they can actually be together? So less tension, a little bit less enjoyment. So I'm going to give this book 4 stars. I like Priest and Sinner way more. So like more like 4.5 stars, but anyway. Next I reread The Professional by Cressley Cole because we put this one on the podcast. I was talking with Juliet because she was the one who recommended The Professional to me like in 2016, and this was one of the first books kind of after the 50 Shades of Grey era that I read with some BDSM elements in it. I think I'd only read maybe one other author that explored BDSM, and so reading The Professional was kind of like a big thing because it was one of the only other erotica books that I had been interested in at that point. This book is fast and furious. I love it. I love the way that Natalie and Alexander kind of explosively come together toward the beginning of the book. Natalie's been looking for her adoptive parents. She knew that she was adopted from Russia, so she's been doing like basically ancestry, DNA matches, being in communication with like a private investigator investigator in Russia, and suddenly the private investigator just cut off all communications. She lives in Nebraska. One night while she's with her girlfriends at a bar doing kind of like her party trick, which is her manalizer, she sees a man and she can basically tell you all about him. But this guy walks in and she cannot get a accurate reading on him because he is a little bit contradictory. He gives off an air of menace, but he's very quiet and stuff. So she's just like, I don't know what's going on with this guy. Well, when she speaks to him, he has a Russian accent. And so she's like, oh my God, I kind of know a little bit of Russian, because she's been studying for it ever since she knew that she was adopted from Russia. She's not quite fluent, but she's passable in Russian. Later on that night, after she strikes out trying to take this guy home, she goes home to take care of herself, and she thinks she's imagining Alexander Sebastian in her mirror, in her foggy mirror, but no, he's actually there. And he's basically saying like, hey, your father sent me, your real father, and you need to get on this private plane to Russia because he's a very important man and he wants to meet you right now. So this is the start of their romance. It's kind of like a bodyguard romance, even though their chemistry is very steamy right off the bat. Sebastian has emotional baggage as well, and it keeps him from openly communicating with Natalie, which is their biggest hurdle. I still really enjoyed this book. This was a 4.5 star read for me. It's just really fun. It's a lot different from books that I read now, but it still didn't dampen my enjoyment for that one. And then after I listened to the audio for The Professional, I decided to pick up the Master because I had never continued with the series. So I did start the Master a couple days ago with audio, and this is Sebastian's brother, Alexander's brother, Maxime. Maxime is a political figure. He's very rich and stuff, and he orders an escort. So the heroine, Kat, is living under an assumed identity because something has happened. Her first husband is not a good man, and she recently kind of discovered it within the past few years, and she's been moving every 6 months to try to stay safe and not let him find her. She needs cash really badly, and one of her friends who is an escort is like, well, why don't you take my place tonight because I need to get Botox, and so you can just go and you can get a lot of money. Like, it's one time I got like $20,000, so like a couple $1,000s in your pocket, it'll be great. So Kat decides, why not? I'm just gonna do it. I'm desperate. She goes, and Maxime's like, you are not what I ordered. I ordered a tall, leggy blonde, and you are a curvy Latina, short stack, and this is not what I ordered. So Kat, as she's swaying away, he's like, wait, hold on, I changed my mind. I saw the booty. I changed my mind. So Maxim brings in Kat, and their encounter is completely different. You can tell that he has had some sort of negative experience with sex. He doesn't associate sex with escorts with pleasure with them. He even warned her, like, do not fake your pleasure at all. And he is almost mesmerized when he notices how turned on Kat is by him and how much she's enjoying it, and he wants to be touched with her, whereas normally he would do everything in his power to make sure that they touch as little as physically possible when you're having sex. So this is kind of a revelation for Maxim, and he even calls her back, which he is known to not call back, because once her escort friend finds out who she had serviced that night, she's like, oh my God, I've been always wanting to be called up by him. Tell me it was great. Maybe you made an impression on him and it'll call you back. He normally never calls people back. And he does. And they have an interesting encounter, which leads to it becoming kind of a captor-captive situation. Maxim kind of keeps Kat a little bit against her will. And Maxim is a little bit unreasonable about it all. He kind of throws temper tantrums like a toddler, but I love the way that Kat responds to him. It was kind of really perfect. Like I said, this is erotica, so there's lots and lots and lots of sex scenes. The audio is pretty funny for both of them because there's lots of moaning and groaning, and it's pretty funny. Towards the middle of the book, I started skimming the sex scenes because, like, yeah, dirty, very dirty sex scenes. So I just started skimming because I wanted the story. But it was still very enjoyable, so I gave this book 4 stars. I also really needed a pick-me-up during the week. I decided to reread something because I was in desperate need of a comfort read, and in case you are just now tuning in on my channel, I desperately love the Side Changeling series. They are probably my most reread series ever. I picked up Slave to Sensation, and I just needed that Sasha and Lucas love. If you haven't read the Side Changeling series, this is an urban fantasy romance series with different couples for each book. Sasha is a Psy, and which means that her race has abilities. They have sort of mental abilities, and they think that they're superior because the Psy's claim to fame is that they are emotionless, so they can make decisions that are extremely rational, and also they're pretty powerful. Sasha's mother is part of the council, which is their ruling body. Sasha, she's a cardinal Psy. It's an outward expression of your power. If you have cardinal eyes, which are black eyes with like starlight in the black, it means you have immense power. The only problem is Sasha is kind of a dud. She doesn't have any real power to speak of, but she thinks that she's going crazy mentally because she's doing stuff that Psy are not supposed to do. They're not supposed to feel emotions, they're not supposed to have feelings, and they're not supposed to dream, and Sasha is doing all this, and she thinks that she's going to be rehabilitated very soon, which is where if something's wrong with you as a Psy, they take you and basically kind of give you a lobotomy. But she's working with her mother, and she meets with Lucas Hunter, who is an alpha of a changeling pack. They are leopard shifters or cat shifters in the San Francisco area. They're also developers, land developers. So they kind of partner up, trying to make a deal where they would be building changeling condos, and Lucas knows that there's something different about Sasha. He also needs an in to find out more about the Psy because their pack and a pack that they have an alliance with, the Snow Dancer pack, has been the target of a serial killer, and they think it's a Psy. But it's very hard to prove because the Psy claim, you know, they have less than 1% violence in the entire Psy community around the world. So how do you prove that they have a serial killer and that they're covering it up? Lucas thinks that he can get some stuff out of Sasha. So that's how the story starts. I love their romance so much. I love the changeling so much, and I will always love the series, always. So 5-star reread for me. Then I listened to How to Flirt with a Naked Werewolf by Molly Harper. This is our Patreon pick, so I'm not going to go into detail a whole lot because I want to review it with our patrons first before I ever talk about it. But the premise is that our heroine Mo is from a small town in Mississippi, and she was raised by these hippie parents who wouldn't even like let her go to school. She didn't even have a social security number until she like announced herself at public school saying, I want to go to school here. And she wants a little bit of distance from her parents. She recently had an engagement that was called off because she was going to marry this guy for the wrong reasons, because he was exactly what her parents did not approve of. So after the engagement was called off, she was just like, I just need to move out. I need to get away from my parents. Her mom is well-meaning, but kind of a helicopter parent, will go to her apartment and throw away all of her food and replace it with like wheat germ because she's like, all this stuff that you have is unhealthy. And she obviously cares about Mo, but it's too much. So Mo's like, I'm moving to Alaska. She decides to rent this place in Alaska. It's a very small town named Grundy. And when she gets there, she's like, I can see the entire town. Like, I can just see it all laid out for me. She kind of falls into a job becoming the chef at a local like diner called the Glacier, because the owners who own it, Evie and Buzz, I think that their name is, Buzz gets a finger cut. And so Mo ends up by stepping in. She's like, I can cook. And that's how she gets a job. So she's starting to mesh really well with the community, but there's one guy named Cooper who doesn't really love her, and he's secretly a werewolf, and so that's the romance. And I really did enjoy this book. I think that they had some interesting characters, like the community. I thought that it was really fun. The town vibe is a really fun vibe. It's a little bit lacking in the overall romance department. It's not like Fade to Black or anything, but I just wish that we had a little bit more. But I did really enjoy it, so I'm gonna give it 4 stars. Next, I read The Lie by Carla Sorensen. This is a new release, and it's the first book in another spinoff, because Carla Sorensen has a trilogy that are the Washington Wolves. Then she has a spinoff from the very last one, The Marriage Effect, which is the Ward sisters. So it's still within the same world. You see a lot of the same characters. Everyone really loved the Ward sister series, me included, and I was not ready to let go of this world. Carla Sorensen acknowledged that in her author's note of the very last book in the Ward sister series, saying like, so many people love this world with the Washington Wolves, so my next series will still be with the Washington Wolves football team. And this is the first book. I don't know what she's calling the series, but it's the first book of the Washington Wolves spinoff. The hero, Dominic, is a native to Seattle. He went to college in Texas, and then he started playing with Vegas. So he's always had an uphill battle to get where he is in football, but he also kind of has this reputation of being somebody who has like a temper on the field, and It has a lot to do with the culture and atmosphere of the football team that he was on in Vegas. For some reason, Dominic is okay with letting everybody think that this is just him naturally. He is a very grumpy hero though, he really is. So finally he gets traded to the Washington Wolves series team and he goes back to Seattle, but he is struggling mentally because that day that he's there, he had just signed on with them, signed the contract the day before, and today is the anniversary of his younger sister's death. She had died about 5 years ago and he's still struggling. They were extremely close and he's just so sad about it. But of course he's not letting anybody know that that's what's going on with him. He's the type of person that keeps everything bottled inside and doesn't want to let anybody in because, like, why would you? Who cares if you know me? You don't need to know me. This leads to him making a slightly bad decision when the rookie who also got recently signed on to the Washington Wolves says, hey, why don't we take shots at the 50-yard line? I always wanted to do that. Dominic had always promised his sister that they would go to the Washington Wolves stadium when it was empty and like stand on the field. Like that was the big dream for him to play on that team and her and him to stand on the field. So he ends up by going. The rookie gets really drunk and in the morning the rookie throws up on the field, on their like emblem on the field or whatever you call it. And Dominic ends up by taking the blame. So we know that he's not a bad guy because he takes the blame for the rookie. He doesn't want the rookie to have a bad start to this new career. And so he takes the blame because he's already been looked at as a bad guy. The owner of the team, which is a woman, Allie, if you read the other series, you'll know her, gives him the benefit of the doubt, saying like, look, you can make a home here, but your experience is going to be whatever you bring into this. So if you're going to bring in a shitty attitude, then that's what you're going to get. And you just need to straighten up. I can't let this go. So what you're going to do is volunteer with our foundation. It's mandatory. And my daughter, Faith, is heading it up and she'll direct you with whatever you need to do. When Faith walks in, Dominic's just like, oh, here's like a pampered little princess. Of course, her mother and father own the team and she just got a really high ranking job at the foundation. So she obviously hasn't worked very hard to get where she's at, and they have a little tiff. And Faith knows that has this reputation. She is offended that he thinks that she's done zero work at all. She acknowledges, of course I'm privileged, I have a leg up, but that doesn't mean that I didn't work hard. She's like, it's okay, buddy. We're gonna put you through your paces. You come meet me and we're gonna serve the community and you're gonna give back. And so the first is like a car wash plus like a dog wash. I really like that. And then the second one, they go to a community center and they read to kids. There's also an element of this book that I really love, and it's not a secret, it's one of the first things that you find out about this book, that Dominic has this pen pal named Turbo that he's been communicating with for the past 3 years. They both lost somebody. His friend Turbo, this girl, lost her mom whenever she was really young, and he lost his sister. And so they've been they're like best friends. They tell each other everything. Guess what? Faith is Turbo. And Dominic finds out pretty soon, pretty early on in the book, that Faith is Turbo because she said something. It was like a non-curse word that only Turbo uses, and he's like, oh my God, this is my best friend and I acted shitty to her on my first meeting. What are the odds? Holy shit. And I'm attracted to her because he's been fighting his attraction the 2 times that they met in the community center. It's a really great book. It's a lot of instant chemistry, but it makes sense because they really do know each other. They know each other. They've been knowing each other for 3 years. The problem is Dominic is the only one that realizes that they already know each other. It was phenomenal. I gave this book 5 stars. It was good. I loved it. And I can't wait for the next one. All right, the big one that I've been waiting to talk about, By Sinai Rise. Guys, I am struggling with Cora Riley lately. So I binged her Born in Blood series, and especially when you compare it to her Kimura Chronicles books that I really love, those books are just okay. But seeing Cora Riley progress as an author from writing the Born in Blood series, which were okay books, I had a couple that I really enjoyed, and then going to Twisted Loyalties, which I really love, Twisted Emotions, which is my absolute favorite. She does something so unique and interesting in Twisted Emotions, and then Twisted Pride, which I adore as well. Like completely different books, all 3 of them, and those 3 books are the best books that Cora Riley has written, in my opinion. The last 2 books of the Kimura Chronicles series completely bombed for me. So I was tentatively excited when she announced that she was going to do a next gen series with all of the kids of the couples from the Born in Blood series and the Kimura Chronicles. So I was really excited because I'm like, okay, well, I have favorite characters. I'd love to see them again. I'd love to see their kids fall in love. By Sinai Rise is the first book in that series. I didn't realize until recently that By Sinai Rise was only part 1 of a romance, and I've been especially sensitive to duets lately. Most of the time, Not all the time, but most of the time, I feel like having a duet for a couple is unnecessary. I feel like an author is kind of taking advantage of the reader by making them pay double the money for one story. Like I said, there's some books that I feel like, yes, it's necessary to have two books because there's just too much story to tell and the plot's really complicated or something. Something has made it to where I'm like, yes, this book needs to take its time and it needs two books. That's not how I feel the majority of the time. The majority of the time I'm like, this duet could have been one book, and I don't like feeling taken advantage of by authors, especially authors who I have supported a lot and bought a lot of their books. So I wasn't happy that this was part one of a series, but I was like, fine. So I bought the ebook. This is an enemies to lovers romance. Marcella is the daughter of Luca Vitiello, who is the capo of the New York Italian mafia. And their book is Bound by Honor, the very first book in Born in Blood series. In that book, Luca kind of goes crazy and he completely decimates the local MC. The MC weren't good people at all. But this is where we get our hero. Our hero, Maddox White, was actually 5 years old when Luca went on a rampage and killed the entire MC. His father and his mother weren't really together, so his mother dropped Maddox off at the clubhouse, and the dad just kept this 5-year-old boy at this clubhouse while he was flirting with ladies, getting drunk, being wild, and this little 5-year-old boy was just left to run around the clubhouse by himself. And the scene where Luca actually comes in, Maddox is underneath a table on the disgusting floor playing with a sticky beer bottle because he has nothing else to do. Great parenting, right? So when Luca gets there, his father does shove Maddox underneath a couch, and Maddox actually witnesses the atrocities that Luca commits against these people. He completely murders them very graphically and gruesomely, and of course it's going to have an effect on a 5-year-old boy. Eventually, Maddox is found, given to his mother. His mother gets scared and is like, we're gonna go to Texas to your uncle, your father's brother. He's also the president of a local MC, and his mom ends up by becoming that uncle's old lady, has a kid, so now he has a half-brother slash cousin technically. And he has been waiting to exact vengeance against Luca Vitiello for destroying his clubhouse and also killing his dad, murdering his dad. Their plan is to kidnap his beloved daughter, Marcella, who is a princess. And they do that. You can tell from the very beginning that Maddox just wants her to be a bargaining chip, to be a tool in which to exchange Luca Vitiello, because that's who he really wants. That's who he wants to suffer. He doesn't want Marcella to suffer. Unfortunately, his uncle, who is the president of the MC, he doesn't have the same plan at all. And none of the brothers, none of the other MC motorcycle people, they don't have the same plan as Maddox. And I'm like, you'd think you'd be on the same page with these people before you enact your plan. And Maddox seems totally blown over that they are willing to torture her, threaten rape against her, put her in a dog kennel. One of the guys pees on her. It's just horrific the way that they're treating Marcella. But Maddox is like, oh, you're gonna be okay. We're just gonna trade you for your dad. Nobody wants to hurt you here. And I'm like, wake up, wake up. He is so loyal to Earl, his uncle, and I don't understand it. Before I talk about spoilers generally, I don't know what's happening with Cora Riley's writing. I feel like she had progress between the Born in Blood series and the Kimura Chronicles. I think she grew as a writer. I think she got really good at storytelling and characterizations. And then, like I said, the last few books in the series of the Kimura Chronicles really just missed for me. And this book really missed for me. So now I feel like she has regressed as a writer. Not only was the plot uninspired because it follows very closely the plot of Twisted Pride, which is a captor-captive situation. Like Ramo and Serafina, what they go through and what Marcella and Maddox go through is pretty similar. Different situations, of course, but pretty similar. It's pretty similar. And I'll talk about the exact similarities in my spoiler review. But I don't know if she doesn't have the same editing team anymore as what she had in the first three, Twisted Loyalties, Emotions, and Pride, or she's not in the same headspace as she was when she was writing them. I have no idea what's happening, but I feel like the writing was so juvenile. It felt very uninspired, very lackluster, and the dialogue, some of the word choices were just so weird, so weird. I'm gonna talk about specific examples. So, spoilers. Maddox is having a hard time keeping an eye on Marcella to make sure that nobody messes with her. There's this guy named Cody who has made his intentions of raping her extremely clear. His uncle, Earl, has also said, like, I don't mind torturing her, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. I want Luca to crawl. Like, yeah, we're supposed to trade this girl, but I want to make Luca suffer, so we're gonna keep her for longer than I originally told you that we were gonna keep her for. He's all about, like, Earl, the leader, the person who Maddox owes his loyalty to, all about making Marcella suffer for the sins of her father. And that's the title of this series, The Sins of the Father. My problem is that Maddox felt his position in the motorcycle group, at first you think it's high, and then you realize he really doesn't have a lot of power. Jen and I were talking about that. He felt, Jen said, neutered, and I'm like, yes, I agree. He just felt like he had no say-so. He had no actual position in the motorcycle group. And then his loyalty to his uncle kind of made no sense. So not only is Maddox's revenge plot hinging on the fact that he's taking revenge against a man who later on he tells Marcella he doesn't have good memories of. He doesn't have good memories of his father. He was kind of a shitty father. And then we find out that Earl has been a shitty replacement for his father. Not only do we see, like, witness in the conversations between Maddox and Earl, that Earl basically is just like, you shut up and you get in line. Your loyalty is to this club. Think about who you want to be defending. This girl who is the poor daughter of your enemy, or your club who's always there for you. But then we also have these moments where Maddox is like, yeah, when I was younger, Earl forced me to watch dog fights. Like, they enjoy dog fights. Earl and all his cronies enjoy dog fights. They love the violence. They love when the dogs kill each other. Maddox does not like that. Earl is even forcing his son, which is Maddox's half-brother, Gray, to watch the fights too. And Maddox and Gray have conversations. Maddox is like, tell him you don't want to go anymore. Gray's like, he thinks I'm soft. He's forcing me to watch this. So Earl doesn't seem like quite a good guy. I don't understand why Maddox thinks they have a good relationship. I don't understand why this relationship, this loyalty to Earl and this motorcycle club, which I'm like, where are Maddox's friends? He doesn't have any allies. Gray is a tentative ally, but he is also a very just like sad boy in the background. I'm just like, I don't understand what's holding you to this MC, especially since they have shown that they are willing to torture and rape an innocent woman. So the excuse of how long it takes Maddox to actually do something about Marcella being kept in a cage, stripped and videoed naked, not fed, peed on, hosed down, she's been grubby, disgusting. He finally was like, pretends like he's going to sleep with her to get back at Luca Vitiello just so he can get her in his room and she could take a shower and stuff. And so finally, halfway through the book, she gets into his room and now they can actually like converse. And now the sexual chemistry can start developing finally. And there's a scene, like I said, there's some weird dialogue choices. When Marcella's talking to the guys who are taunting her, she's like, my father and all of his loyal followers will be coming here to exact their vengeance. And I'm like, do people talk like that? All of his loyal followers. Like, I'd just be like, dude, my dad and his men are going to kick your asses. You're in for a ride. They're gonna rip you to shreds. But no, it sounds very weird. Another instance, whenever she's in his room, she finds out that he has 2 cock piercings. And she asks him, well, why would somebody want to pierce their genitalia? Genitalia just sounds very medical. She's equally like very sheltered, but also she's not quite disturbed at a lot of the coarse and crude comments that they make. So I don't understand why her word choice was genitalia. I am nitpicking at this point, but like everything's standing out as a red flag right now. But the thing that got me during the scene was that when she asked that, his response, Maddox's response was to give lust and to receive lust. And to me, that is a very weird word choice because wouldn't it be pleasure? Like, these piercings give your partner more pleasure and you get more pleasure out of that in turn. But like, to give lust and to receive lust, it's just a weird word choice. And there's a ton of them in here. I don't understand why an editor didn't pick that out because it's just very weird. It takes you out of the story being like, well, what is this? This doesn't quite make sense. And there's just lots of corny word choices of like, she's a queen, she's a princess, and whatever, la la la. And it's just, I don't like it. I don't like it, guys. I was more than disappointed at the end of this book because there is a cliffhanger that I'm just like, shouldn't even be here. We spent too much time with Marcella being a captive with the MC, and there's a probably good excuse for why the situation of the cliffhanger occurred, which I don't want to give spoilers out for that just in case. It's dumb. It feels like Core Riley is milking one love story for the price of 2 books, and I felt kind of cheated as a loyal customer, as a reader. The romance was lackluster. The plot Core Riley has done before. Not quite in the same manner, but she's done it before. They have a scene. Okay, so spoilers for Twisted Pride. In Twisted Pride, Ramo kidnaps Serafina from her wedding. And in By Sin I Rise, Maddox kidnaps Marcella from like her almost birthday celebration or whatever. Same thing. Sending messages to their family, to the girl's family, about we're gonna torture her unless you give us what we want type of thing. And then they kind of fall in love anyway, decide, oh, well, I can't keep them in this situation, so let's like return you. That all happens in both books. In different ways. Ramo literally just kind of sends Serafina back. Maddox actually has to like call Luca and be like, your daughter's here, because I obviously can't protect her by myself. So like, this is her location. Come quick before these guys do anything worse besides attempt to rape her and tattoo VTL horror on her back. And Maddox is just helpless. He just staying there. Can't do a thing. They're now beating him up, and I'm just like, ugh, he just feels like not a badass. Once Marcella is rescued, they capture Earl and Cody, the psycho serial rapist, and also Maddox, and Marcella is the one to be like, I don't want you to kill Maddox. Same thing. Serafina rescues Ramo after he is captured and beaten and tortured. Serafina rescues Ramo. I was emotional during that scene. I was like, oh my God. Ramo was able to sacrifice his life. He's letting himself be tortured, and Serafina is going to be his salvation. The tables have turned, and she felt like a very powerful woman, and you could tell the chemistry between Ramo and Serafina. When Marcella is going down there to be like, I want to spare the life of Maddox, it felt very childish. The scene that was going on felt so very juvenile. It did not land with me at all. That was a lot of why I didn't like this book. Pretty much the entire time I was forcing myself to get through it because I wanted to know why was there 2 books for this romance. I gave this book 2 stars. I think it's the lowest rated book that I've ever really rated a Core Riley. At this point, after not liking Savio's book, Adamo's book, and now this book, By Sin I Rise, I am not going to pick up part 2. I'm not. And she recently announced the other books that she'll be releasing the rest of 2021 and the beginning of 2022. One of them is a couple that I kind of have been waiting for. I haven't read her standalones like Fragile Longing because I've heard mixed reviews about those, and I didn't want to read another Core Riley book that I was just kind of like so about. I feel no excitement towards it. I also returned this book. I also returned By Sin I Rise. I don't normally return ebooks. It's never been a thing that I did. Even if I didn't like it, I don't normally return ebooks. But I returned this one because I was kind of hella mad about wasting my time and just, I don't understand. I feel like there was very little effort that went into this book, and I don't know. It's just a personal opinion. Of course, there's gonna be people who really love this book, but I'm not one of them. And my close friends were not ones who loved it either. So I just feel like something's wrong here. Okay, that's it. Those are all the books that I read for this week. And it was a wild, bumpy ride. I can't lie. Hopefully next week is going to be better. We'll see what kind of books I'm able to read. It might even be a week of rereading. I'm not sure. It depends on where my mood is going forward. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe to get notified on any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, life's better with little HEA. Bye guys.